Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top-of-the-line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. All right, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast with me, Dr. Kylie. I have a very, very special guest with me today. In fact, I told him right before we hit record to shut up. We need to hit record first. We've been going on for about 15 minutes now. We've been going on with each other for what, 3 years now?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, Dr. Greg Mongeon is a brilliant businessman, but he's also very brilliant from the doctor mindset as well in helping patients. Today, we're going to talk to you practitioners. And one, because we've been in your shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And two, not only has he helped me get to where I am, but now we're helping feed each other on many levels and just bouncing ideas back and forth. So I want you guys to get inside his head, because he's going to take you from wherever you are to a place that you might think you want to be, but even better.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, a lot of times I reference, people who are mentors will take you from point A to point X, not point B. Point B is where you think you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Point X is something that you didn't even know existed, but you can be there. Greg, welcome on.
Oh my gosh. I love the fact that you're like, shut up. We need to start recording some of this stuff, because these are the conversations that you and I have. And when we're around each other, we're very much like two boats in a harbor and the tide is going up. And who's ever in that harbor with us, if they have a boat that's not tied down by beliefs or thoughts, then it gets impacted by the tide. And I love our conversations. You and I were just at a medical conference, 2.5 weeks ago, and we had one of those famous, by the way, I go to conferences not for the conference, but to meet people and to talk to people and have real, raw conversations. So we were at this conference and you and I had a 3-hour, I don't think we moved from a 2 square foot piece of carpet, and it was back and forth and back and forth. And it was not about what's in it for me. It was about how can we take the gifts that we've been given and distribute them through our own giftedness, because what we learned is you and I have different gifts. We have a similar vision to impact people and change people's lives, though we have a little bit different tool set and wantedness to get there. And by the way, that's okay. The world will tell you, if you're listening to this, the world will tell you, this is what success looks like. This is what a busy practice looks like. This is how much you should collect. And what you hear, if you're that person, you hear that, typically what you're hearing is, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. Oh, that person's killing it. And oh, by the way, spoiler alert, most of those people that talk that way are lying, because they just want people to like them. So it's time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to have a raw conversation. It's time to be real. And it's time to know, what does success look like for you? What is financial success for you? What is your giftedness as a clinician? Our clinic takes on some of the hardest cases, by the way, in the world. We get people that need so much hand-holding that they legitimately get unlimited access to one of my clinicians, and the depth of work that we need to do you might be hearing that and being like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. Perfect. But at least you get to understand, right, Dr. Kylie? We had this conversation here because I was like, girl, what do you think about this and this? And you're like, no, that's not my giftedness. So man, yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today. Here's what I know. I have stood on the stage, and if you're listening to this, you maybe have even seen me on the stage speaking for supplement companies and doing business consulting. What I know is that if you're listening to this, you are probably one of the most brilliant clinicians in the world. And if we can just get someone to know, like, and trust you, their life is going to change. What I also know, and I'm saying this as respectfully as I possibly can, that you probably don't know how to get that person in front of you. You don't know how you don't know how to get to market them properly. You don't know how to charge. You don't know psychology of selling. All of these things, you're like, wait, was I supposed to be taught that stuff in medical school or grad school? Sorry, guess what? Spoiler alert, again, you're a salesperson first and foremost, and you have to sell people on what you do. And then once they're inside, then you can work your magic. We have to have both sides of the coin.
Yeah. And I like how you pointed out, you have your gifts, I have my gifts. And in our conversation a couple of weeks ago, this 3 hour long conversation you and I had going back and forth, it was like, how do we blend and support each other? And we were thinking about lab consultations and charging and how to work the two of them together. And I finally just looked at you and it's like, no, that's your jam. That's not my jam. My jam
Mm-hmm.
is this other membership type model where I can be a mom first and foremost.
And that is, pardon me, that is maturity in conversation. When there's scarcity of mindfulness, all you're trying to do is gather crumbs into your own basket. When there's prosperity and you understand your lane, then what you'll learn quite quickly is there's more than enough. There's more than enough sick people. There's more than enough money. There's more than enough world out there to give you everything you've ever wanted and more. Because you talked about before, you talked about this concept of going from A to B without even knowing that there's a C or a D or maybe even an XYZ in that journey. So I'm a huge reader, and we're going to talk about books. And if you're hearing this, like, okay, so if you buy a book, I mean, I know this is a new concept, but if you buy a book and don't read it, you're not going to get the benefit from it, right? So first and foremost, I'm a listener. I will listen to the book. I'm also a walker. I gave up on trying to be a runner because I'm 6'4", 240 pounds. These knees and hips don't run anymore. We go for walks. And during those walks, I listen to books. And if a book is good enough that I want to write notes in it and do the questions in it, then I buy the physical book and I do the homework on it, right? So that's during this conversation, like for example, there's a book called The Gap and the Gain written by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And this book talks a lot about understanding your giftedness, saying yes to the things that are in alignment with what you do, and being okay. The most powerful two-letter sentence in the English dictionary that will break you through is the answer no. Because we feel as clinicians, we have to say yes to everyone. Oh, you can't pay me? How about I just pay you to be my patient because I can help everybody? What? That's crazy. So anyway, so there's just real clarity that needs to happen. We do need to do work inside of being business people. And here's the thing, there's another book, I'm sorry, I'm going to reference a couple of books. There's another book that Dr. Kiley has figured out, and it's called Who, Not How. And what that means is, who can do this for me, not how do, I have to figure that out. Like, for example, I just talked about marketing, and you're like, I do not understand marketing. Does that mean, did he just tell me that I have to understand how to do social media advertising and how to set up all this stuff? You're like, oh, and the answer is no. You can find a who that can do that for you. And by the way, that who does not have to work for you 60 hours a week. That who does not have to be your employee. You can contract that who to get you kickstarted to help you out, but you have to be willing to understand what your needs are so that you can move that forward.
And let's pinpoint that for a few minutes, because I'll go to the grocery store or to church or wherever, and people are like, how do you do what you do? Do you have time for all that? And my very first response in all aspects is, I pay a lot of people. And it's
Right.
because I'm outsourcing. I am very, very good at what I do, but I am not good at other things. And so I'm going to pay those people who are good at those other things
Mm-hmm.
to do that for me. And as practitioners, many of them listening right now, they are trying to do everything.
Right.
So one, they're exhausted, burnt out, hating what they do because they're not doing what they love,
Right.
and then charging, in your words, prostitute numbers for it.
They're prostituting themselves out.
Yes.
And here's the concept that I want you to understand. Number one, I hope that elicits an emotion that makes your toes curl. Because who really wants to be a prostitute? Who'd ever prostitute themselves? That means there's no value. However, when we legitimately have an authentic conversation about what you're saying yes to, what you're not saying no to, and what you're charging, a little bit uncomfortable, yet not too far off from it.
Let's jump back into a story where you first entered my life. I was charging what, $350 a month for the 6-month programs that included, catch this, $200 worth of supplements. And I remember I had just met Dr. Greg, and I texted him one of these days where I was like, I just had a patient walk out with $250. Like, this is not gonna work. I need help. Met with you the next day, about an hour and a half from my house where you happened to be living for 3 months of your life. And we went from you and I working more and more one-on-one together because I'm big fans of mentors and masterminds. I'm in a mastermind myself. I run a mastermind. Like, be surrounded by people who are going to get you to the next step, not ones who are dragging you down.
Mm-hmm.
So then you said to me along our journey, you need to change your prices. And you went from like $350 a month to like, I don't know, $1,200 a month. In my mind, it was so astronomical. And where it is now in 2022 is where it should have been the whole entire time. But I had to
Right.
get there mentally myself, right? So you
Right.
could tell me you need to be charging this amount of money, but I was the one having to make the sell. And when I didn't believe it myself, I was not making any sales.
I think what's important is, okay, so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, he's one of those people that just tells people to charge these astronomical fees and blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're saying. What I really challenge Dr. Kylie in is, how much do you think you are worth?
Exactly.
So this is really a self-worth conversation. There's a really good book that I try to get my nose into as much as possible. Hopefully you have one in your house. It's called the Bible. And in the Bible, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And what I typically will tell people is, how are we doing in the as yourself part of that conversation? Let's get raw for a second.
It's the worst. As yourself.
I ask all of our patients about trauma. Big T traumas, like were you neglected, raped, abused, beaten, went hungry, and then little T traumas. Why in the world do I still remember that goofy thing that happened to me in 1996? These have footprints into our soul, into our spirit. Our body has well-researched responses to these things. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not even worth $300 a month. Number one, as I'm into my 40s now, I'm learning to cry as a guy. It breaks my heart, because what I know, because remember I said a little bit ago, if you're listening to this, the level of clinical acumen that you more than likely have, because you go to seminar after seminar after seminar, is through the roof. That bridge that needs to be gapped, that bridge that I kind of put Dr. Kylie on my shoulders on and helped her walk across, was the as yourself conversation. Wait, time out. What do you have in student debt? What did you pay to get that certification? How many seminars did you go to? Were they free? Oh, I didn't think so. Okay, so some of this is to just understand. Remember, okay, so the gap in the gain, I talked about this book. So if you're not watching me on video, there's 3 places that you are in your life. There's where you started, Let's call that the bottom. There's where you are. And guess what? You are no longer where you were when you started. You're above where you started. Woohoo! And then above that, and for some of you, it's so far up you can't even see it, and that's okay, but it's where you think you should be. So the gap, or the gain rather, let's talk about the gain. The gain is the difference, the delta between where you started and where you currently are. And some of you have such poor self-talk, poor esteem, perfectionist mindset that you can't even acknowledge how far you've come. And the daddy inside of me would love to tell you to just stop, look around. Look, take inventory. How far have you come? And what I know that I know is you've crushed it. So that's called the gain. We can't forget about the gain. And then there's the gap. The gap is where we are compared to where we think we should be, or where the world says we should be. Gag me on that one. And that space, that gap, can be a very lonely place to be. There is judgment, there is competition, there is I'm not good enough, there's all these things. Now, it's okay to sit there for a little bit. We can call that visionary time. We can have that goal setting. But if that's all we think about, then we forget about where we came from. And that's part of the journey. So if you're listening to this, I want you to just stop and look around. Where have I come from? What have I experienced? What are some of those things in my life? And for some of you, oh, by the way, I'm one of these people that I went and did some trauma work. I went and dug back into my past, and I went, help me understand why I do what I do. Help me understand why this 40-something-year-old brain thinks this way. Oh my word. That's where the dirty work comes in. And guess what? A lot of us don't want to do that. We just, so a lot of people, a lot of clinicians especially, don't want to go there. They're just going to say, I just need to go to the next seminar. I just need to go learn the next technique. I just need to go learn about the next supplement line. When in reality, you need to learn about you. You need to learn about you and what makes you tick. You need to learn about you and understand what are your definitions of success. What is your past? Love your neighbor as yourself. Let's have a talk about the as yourself part of it. And you may need to seek out some professional help inside of that. And what I know that I know in my 20 years, by the way, so we're actually recording this in 2021. This just dawned on me. Dr. Kylie, today is my 20th anniversary of being a doctor. How cool is that? 20 years. And you know what? Every year I get a little bit better. Every year I learn a little bit more. And that's the hunger and the fun part of this. So I would just, don't kick yourself for where you are. Take perspective as compared to where you were, and take the right steps moving forward.
I too have done some emotional work. When you first presented the whole financial jump to me, it brought up ugly money mindset blocks. And I've worked my living guts out the last year to get over those money mindset blocks. And I too have hired people who are very good at this. In fact, one of them comes and joins me in my mastermind because there are so many of these emotional mindset childhood experiences that we've had that position ourselves in, particularly with money. I was having this conversation with my husband a few nights ago. We have this many times because we've had a very quote unquote successful year the last year. He owns a roofing business and he almost 10 times his income in 12 months. Very, very, very good efficiently. And he said to me, he's like, well, I don't want them to know how much money we've made. I don't want them to know that we paid cash for this property. I don't want them to know that we paid cash for your car. And I said, why? It's okay to be successful. It's okay to be really good at what you're good at. And yet we have this money mindset block. And I know you're brilliant with this. So the first step you would recommend for those of us who are listening, take me a year ago and even me now, how do we get that? What's the first step we need to do to change our money mindset? It's a big time block for a lot of us healthcare practitioners who go in and we want to help people, but helping people for free or for nothing doesn't pay the bills.
Right. Right. Are you asking me what the first step is? Oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to go here, aren't we? Okay. So I'm on my spirit about 7 years ago. So my wife and I have 5 beautiful children, and baby number 4, her name is Lindley. That little sucker has such a spirit, and God has her in my life to teach me a lot of lessons. And that little stinker would just like refuse to get potty trained. And so she would go in the corner and poop her pants. And then I would come along and be like, Lindley, where does Poopy go? And she's like, oh, Daddy, Poopy goes in the toilet. And then I would change her diaper and we'd have a conversation. And then I realized, oh my word, she has no necessary motivation to become potty trained, because when she poops her pants, she gets attention from Dad and Mom. And she knows no one's going to beat her. There's no like real negative ramification of dropping a Duke in her shorts. And life is actually pretty okay. I mean, like, this is an okay spot. Okay, fast forward now to whatever age you might be now. And I believe that we are still walking around in poopy pants. And so the book is going to be called The Poopy Diaper Syndrome. So whatever you're in, we've conditioned the people around us. For example, we've talked about some people in your life that have been a big part of your conditioning around money. So Dr. Kylie, when you talk to certain people in your life about your financial situation, you know that there's going to be kind of this like, oh, you're one of those people now, or, ooh, like, probably not a good whatever. So a lot of times we stay where we are, even though we know that it's poop in our pants, because it's warm and soft and it's comfortable. And we also know how people in our circle are going to respond to us. But yet we now as adults, we kind of like, yeah, but I just, so it takes a step. So when it comes to money, here's the first step. Who taught you about money? Who was your influence about money? And what did they teach you? And here's where the big shift comes. So that's just gathering data, right? It was my mom and dad, especially my dad, because my dad was the financial guy. And I remember that I had to buy my first bicycle or whatever it was. And then here is the $1 million pivot opportunity. As an adult, do you agree with wholeheartedly the premise that you were taught as potentially a young child, or would you rewrite the rule? Spoiler alert, you can rewrite the rule. If you do not like the way that money, the handling of money, the attitude around money was presented to you at some point in time in your life, you do not have to hold on to it. You get to redefine it. So that book that I talked about a little bit ago, called the Bible, it talks about having an inheritance for your children's children. You know what that means to me? I got 5 kids. My children's children, we're talking lots of babies. I need a lot of dough. Cool. That's pretty sweet. Now, for me, that's the word legacy. Now, legacy is not just greenbacks. Legacy is also why I make decisions about my current health and the things that I say yes and no to. Because I don't just want to give fat checks and trust funds to my great-grandchildren. I actually want to be present in their life as that old crazy Dr. Grandpa Greg that can roll around on the ground with them and be a part of them. So the very first step is this. Who taught you about money? What did they teach you? Do you agree or disagree? If you agree and that person's still alive, acknowledge them. Because a lot of you are taught really good things about money. And a lot of you were fed a basket full of lies and deceit and crap. Rewrite it. Because guess what? There are generations. So one of the therapists that we've worked with said that steps like this have impacts 3 generations deep. So if you need to change the family tree around money, be that person. You be the person that changes the freaking mindset around money. Stop being a victim of generational attitudes, because the person that taught you was taught by somebody else. And they didn't have the understanding to go in and go, you know what? no, it's not how we're going to do it. But now you know. And now you can't tell me, how come you never told me? Which is one of the reasons why I'm on earth. So there you go.
Money mindset.
That could be that could be quite the little like gut level conversation.
Well, when people first approach me, like, you have some money blocks, you said it yourself. No, I don't. That's my first response. Whereas we all have them. It's a matter of, can you recognize it, and are you willing to change it?
And it's okay. By the way, I still have them.
Exactly. That's why I say we all have them.
Right. Like you, I'm at a place financially that I've never been before. Whoa, this is crazy. And if I stay in my giftedness, there's the possibility that I could, in a year from now, be in another place that I've never been before. And the real question is, do you have a system and a mindset around it so it can be a blessing to you as opposed to a curse for you? My wife, who has a PhD in calling the kettle black, years ago said to me, I'm actually grateful that business deal didn't go through, because I'm not so sure it would have been a blessing to us in our current state of life. Whew, let me swallow that one for a second. That came in like a load of bricks. And then, you know what? You're right. You were right. So be flexible enough to understand, because a lot of us say, like you said earlier, A to B, but what if there's X, Y, Z? What if you are truly on earth? What if there is, my understanding of a creator that has you here to do amazing things? Do you have the possibility of the understanding of knowing what you don't know? And are you open to it? That's what excites me. That's what gets me up every single day. I'll state it as is. I have a strong faith in God, and to know that the possibilities are endless, because if you can create the heavens and the earth, like, here's little me, that's pretty exciting. And to know that there are people that are literally dying. By the way, if you're listening to this and you're a healer, there are people that are literally dying to know about you. We don't have a very expensive program, because I've figured out what works best for us with what we do. And yet we've had people that have taken up loans to get well. They value it so much that they've taken out a loan or a home equity line of credit. What I will tell you right now is, people will pay for what they value.
The iPhone is $1,500. How many people are getting new iPhones every 6 months? And yet they can't pay for a $99 lab console or whatever it is. Like, they will pay for what they value. They will find money for what they value. I will find money for what I value. I value my time with my kids. I will pay somebody to do my X, whatever it is.
Exactly. So this might be one of those, like, this is like I like going to church and leaving with a stomach ache, because that means the message was like a gut punch. And I guess my hope and prayer is that the people that are listening to this are like, damn, he was raw. Because here's the scoop. We need those raw opportunities in our life to just have a checkup from the neck up. Where are you? Where do you want to be? What's keeping you? Take some action steps. Tony Robbins says massive action, trumps literally everything. And a lot of people get caught in the paralysis by analysis, or they heard you say, I hire things out. And they're like, well, I can't afford to hire things out, so this doesn't apply to me. What happens is people belly flop in the deep end, then they figure out they can't swim, then they get to the side, and they're like, I'm never going in that pool again. So anyway, so I hope that if you're listening to this, we've given you some action steps. I'd love for you to just do that baby exercise about your mindset around money. And I would love to hear about those that are listening to this that have redefined money and what it is. By the way, it's just energy. It just flows. Don't be a block. Don't be a dam. Just let it flow.
Yeah.
There's lots of it.
Maybe I need to reframe this, but I always just say it's numbers on a screen. You're just moving numbers around.
Right.
Sometimes they're just added zeros. That's all.
Zeros are good.
Okay, so that being said, I want to challenge listeners to do two things right now. I don't care if you're a practitioner. I don't care if you're just somebody trying to leveling up.
Right.
One, journal your money mindset. Where did it come from? Are you going to change it? How are you going to change it?
Mm-hmm.
And then two, I actually was thumbing through my notebook last night before I went to bed, and I came across a journal prompt, which I rarely do this. I need to do it more, but where I look back and I say, you know what? I'm not Dr. Greg. I haven't been in this for 20 years, but I've been in this for 3.5 years. And you can ask him, I've come a hell of a long way.
Your gain is astronomical, girl.
Yeah, in 3.5 years.
Your gain is mind-blowing. By the way, if you're listening to this, so is yours. Just acknowledge it. Stop, turn around, look where you came from.
And that's the next thing. Money mindset. And then go back and write this down. Don't just think it in your head. Write it down. Or grab your phone and grab the voice memo and speak it out loud. Take action. And think, you know what? I was there 3 years ago. And now look where I am. And that will just give you more momentum to keep going. But no, you have already taken leaps and bounds toward your dream. In fact, you might be living your dream, the dream you had 5 years ago. You might be in it right now. Now you've got an even better dream. You can keep chasing after it, but go back, look at yourself, and congratulate yourself for how far you have come.
Good stuff.
Whether you have a diagnosis or not, I don't care. I'll teach you how to find what's causing your health concerns using the labs you already have. Your doctor might tell you your blood work is normal, but I'm here to teach you a better way. If you're a doctor or a health coach and anything in between, there's one for you too. Download your cheat guides and register here at drkylieburton.com. This podcast is sponsored by Systemic Formulas and Nutribiome. Systemic Formulas, the supplement company I trust with my patients and family. Instead of ordering from a handful of companies, I use 95% SF products. They're top-of-the-line quality with the best lab west of the Mississippi. They're pure, potent, and they get results. In fact, I recommend you follow their Instagram at Systemic Formulas Institute. Also, the man who's behind the Systemic Formulas products, Dr. Shane Morris, is launching a new line of supplements designed to take your microbiome to the next level. He has specific prebiotics designed to feed the probiotics. Learn more and order soon at mybiome.com. mybyome.com.